Hello friends, Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com, your wicked chef. Always a pleasure to have you in the kitchen here with me today. Kiana requested I make some stewed pork for her. And you know what, I have an old video up on YouTube here with me making the stewed pork, but I just thought I'd do a new version 2.0. Hey, it's all new good things happening here. So we're doing today the ultimate Caribbean style stewed pork. And my baby, watch it, it done season up, marinating for a couple hours. Over here, so we got some dal bubbling away, brown rice done cook, all kind of lovely things in the kitchen today. Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com, the ultimate stew pork. In my bowl here I have 3.5 pounds of pork meat that I cubed up into about 1-inch pieces. Cut off as most of the fat that I can, but you will still notice there is some fat in there. That is exactly what I want because it gives it a wicked flavor. Trust me on this, a little bit of fat, I mean to say you could go and take a run and burn off that fat. 3.5 pounds of pork. Try to get a cheap cut of pork because we're going to be cooking this for long. No sense spending money on a tenderloin or anything like that. So 3.5 pounds of pork. I've got 2 scallions that I chopped up here, and all we're doing is seasoning this so we can marinate it for a couple hours before we get to the stewing process. So in goes those 2 scallions, 1 tomato chopped up. I've got here 3 cloves of garlic. That is crushed. A tablespoon of ketchup. Green season, Caribbean style green seasoning, a heaping tablespoon of that. And if you're watching this on YouTube, in the description below I will have a link on how you can put this wonderful zesty green seasoning together. 1 onion that we lost a little piece there. 1 onion that I chopped up. Some fresh ground black pepper. I'm getting about a 1/4 teaspoon or so. I've got a teaspoon of salt. Worcestershire sauce. I think I said it correct this time. And I'm going in with about a tablespoon or so of that Worcestershire sauce. One thing I forgot, guys, and it's very important in here. Hang with me for a second. I'll go grab it from the fridge. And here it is, 3/4 teaspoon of freshly grated ginger. All kind of lovely flavors going on in there. And you're probably wondering, where is Caribbean Sunshine Scotch bonnet pepper? I ran out of Scotch bonnet peppers. I've got to go downstairs in the freezer. Your boy lazy did. I don't want to go downstairs. But I've got here 3 peppers. Chili peppers, we call them bird's eye pepper or bird's pepper down in the Caribbean. I'm just going to break off the stem. In goes them whole because I want the flavor but not so much of the heat. I'm going to mix this all up now. We really want to incorporate all those lovely flavors in there. Then you're going to put some cling wrap over this and allow that to marinate for a couple hours at least. Overnight would be wicked, but I mean to say we're pressed for time. Got the girls coming home from school in a couple hours. At least they're going to smell it when they come home already cooking. I'm going to give this, continue stirring this up. Put it in the fridge for a couple hours to marinate, and then we're going to get stewing. You'll also need about 2 to 2.5 cups of water, a tablespoon and a half of vegetable oil, and maybe about a tablespoon and a half of brown sugar for the stewing process. I've got my heavy iron pot, Mr. Dutchie. Couple tablespoons of vegetable oil is already in there. It's nice and hot on a high flame. And we're gonna, this whole stewing process is exactly like how we did the stewed chicken as well as the stewed beef. If you don't eat pork, you can search those videos out right here on the YouTube channel. And I mean to say, do your thing with chicken as well as with beef. The beef would be exactly as with the pork because it takes pretty much the same amount of time to get tender. However, if you're doing chicken, it will cook a lot faster. And in goes, in that hot pot, I'm doing a tablespoon and a half of brown sugar. And you want that to start melting in there. And this step is very, very important because if you allow it to go beyond the stewing, the right phase for stewing, you will end up with a sort of a bitter aftertaste. dry spoon, another important thing. No liquid whatsoever on this, nice and dry. And secondly, over here you can see I have the seasoned pork, which has been marinating now for 2 hours. I brought it out of the fridge, left it on the counter here for about 10 minutes just to bring it back up to room temperature. And I'm just going to go ahead and move that sugar around in the oil a bit. We want that to melt and caramelize. It's going to start bubbling and all kind of lovely things, man. It's been going now for about 30 seconds. It's bubbling up, it's going frothy, and you really want to pay attention to it because it will start going from golden to a bit darker color, and that's exactly what we're looking for. And the reason why I'm using a metal spoon, if you're using a plastic spoon in here, it will melt because we've got high temperatures going on in the pot here. Notice that lovely color we have there now. That's exactly what we wanted. So you want to start adding the seasoned pork to the pot. And you'll notice that I stirred it around because I wanted to start picking up all that browning, all that lovely caramel base from the bottom of the pot. My heat is still on high. I've added all of that lovely seasoned pork in here. Keep stirring it. You really want it to incorporate and pick up all that sort of caramel base that we created. If you're wondering if this is going to be sweet because of that sugar in there, no chance of it being sweet. With that little bit of pepper we add in there, those herbs, those seasonings, everything else, lovely, lovely, lovely. All I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn my heat down to medium-high, and I'm going to put the lid on here and bring that up to a boil. Within a couple minutes, it would have come up to a boil. And you can see it's already bubbling away. It's going to start releasing its own natural juices. And here's where we're going to build that strong stew base by allowing this to slowly cook for about 10 minutes. Let me just adjust this camera. Here we go. I'm going to allow this to slowly cook in its own juices for about 10 minutes on a medium heat. Let it gently bubble away, and then we're going to crank up the heat and really force those nice stew flavors into the meat, burn off all that liquid, and then really get into cooking. It's been about 10 minutes now, so I'm just going to take a peek at what's going on here. Notice all that liquid that just sprouted up there? That's exactly what we expected. All we're going to do now, we're going to crank up the heat because we want to burn off all of that liquid and intensify the flavor and intensify the color. Because we need this to go a little bit darker, because that's what typically stewed pork is supposed to look like. So I turned up the heat. It's probably going to take another 5 to 8 minutes to burn off all that liquid. Keep an eye on it, keep stirring it, and as soon as we're done burning off all that liquid, what we're going to do, in the same bowl that I marinated the pork in, I dumped in 2 cups of water in there, because that's the water we're going to be using to finish cooking this, to braise it down, to make it nice and tender. If you're wondering about cross-contamination and stuff like that, by adding the water in the same container we had the raw pork in, no worries, this is going to cook for another hour and a half or so after we add that water in there. No germs, trust me. They smelling wicked. Most of the liquid has been burnt off now, and you're going to start hearing that sizzling, which means it's pretty much oil on the bottom of the pot. You want to give this another minute after you start hearing that sizzle, because you really want to darken up the pieces of meat to infuse it as well with that flavor. Notice the lovely rich color we have in there now. The lighting isn't all that great, but I assure you this is nice and dark in there now. All I'm going to do, and all that liquid is gone, I'm going to add in the 2 cups of water we had in the same bowl that we marinated the pork in. And the reason why we added the water to that bowl is because we want to pick up any leftover marinade You don't want to leave all that flavor sitting there and going down the drains after we wash it. I'm going to bring this back up to a boil with the lid on it, and then we're going to reduce it and allow it to braise. It's come up to a boil now. Just going to give that a quick stir, and you want to make sure that your pork is covered by that liquid. Turn your heat down to low so you have like a sort of a simmer going, and let that go for at least 1 hour. Stir it every 15 minutes or so and really allow this to tender up. It's been about 1 hour and 10 minutes. I just tried it prior to the last time I stirred it. It was getting nice and tender, so I'm guessing it's perfectly where I want it to be. Please test it at this point. Taste it for salt, adjust accordingly, as well as to see if it's tender enough for you. I like it fork tender. This is exactly where it's at right now, so I'm just going to turn up my heat, because if you notice, the gravy or the sauce is still really runny. I want to burn that down, thicken it up, maybe about, I'm guessing a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes on a high setting. And my gravy will be nice and thick, and this will be all done and ready to devour. The gravy is nice and thick now. Let's pan out a little bit. Turn off that heat, because the residual heat is going to continue cooking this and dry up my gravy even more. This is it here, guys. The ultimate stewed pork. That hint of ginger, all that herbs and spices and everything. Well, no spices, but the herbs and that green seasoning. This pork is absolutely delicious. Give it a try. Let me hit all the little close up again. Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com. Give this recipe a try. You're absolutely going to love it. Always a pleasure to have you here in the kitchen with me, and have a great day.